This little grinder here from Eureka just hit the market, and its claim is to be the smart version of the Specialita. Hopefully it helps you make better coffee at home more consistently no matter what level of barista you are. But how smart is it? Well, come closer, my little friend, and let's check it out. G'day mate, my name's Ride, your coffee coach, and today I want to take a look at the Specialita SMART, which is the latest in the grinder range from Eureka Mignon. And I want to give you my opinions on it. And I want you to know that this video is not sponsored in any way by Eureka. Yes, they did send me this machine to review. However, my thoughts are my own. I'm going to tell you what I love about it, what I don't really like about it, and also what they won't tell you in the sales manual. And there is something that I absolutely do love about it. So stay tuned for that. So if you do appreciate these videos, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, and also let me know in the comments below what you think about it, and subscribe if you want to see more videos on coffee gear to make better coffee at home for yourself. Thanks a lot, you freaking legend. Now, Eureka have a reputation for making grinders. In fact, you could get lost browsing their entire range of grinders. There's just that many, from everything from the basic right up to the highest level with all the bells and whistles on it. But their most popular one was the Specialita. And so what they've actually done is make this one the Specialita SMART version. So same specs in most cases. You have a 55mm flat burst set that sits here. You have the classic look with the classic dial here with the fleur-de-lis on top. Notice though how there isn't any numbers on the top anymore, and I'll get to that in a second. Still has the 300-gram hopper up here, which, you know, this is not for those who want to do single dosing. Obviously they have some grinders out there for single dosing, but this is for the people who just want to put some beans in of the morning, and hopefully it grinds exactly what they need. And maybe if they leave it in there overnight, which I wouldn't recommend, but you know, you can leave it in there, then you can use it the next day. So yes, it has the classic stepless burr, it has the classic stepless dial, it has this fork here, which I like the upgrade on this one because they've actually made it so you can just adjust it with your hands instead of having to get a screwdriver to adjust it. And it comes with this little dosing ring, which I'll get to in a second when we grind up something. The biggest thing you'll notice is that it has a huge 2.8 LCD touchscreen. Yes, the Specialita did too, and it's got your single, your double dose, and your continuous dose. However, there's a few more things in there which we'll go into right now. And it comes in different colors. So it comes in like the black here, it comes in the Ferrari red, you know, Italians love their Ferraris. It comes in a terracotta and a white and even a chrome. So no matter what your kitchen looks like, you can get one that matches. Obviously, you'll notice there's a bigger screen here, lots more information. Yes, on the surface, it does look like it's just the normal Specialita with a single dose, a double dose, and a continuous dose. However, if you scratch a little bit below the surface, you'll find that there's a whole bunch of features in there which will actually probably make your life easier at home. So firstly, there's a number associated with the grind size, and that just makes it easier. If you're dialing in grind day after day to day, you know that you need to aim for say 8, and maybe you need to fractionally go lower to a 7, 6, 5, and so on, or maybe you need to go up higher. Now, that's okay. I wish they would have measured in microns. Microns is a length which is a millionth of a meter, and it's a nice accurate number because that basically says the distance between the burrs is X amount of microns, and that's a universal language. So then in the future when you're dialing in coffees, it'll make it much easier to get an accurate grind size. So for instance, if you're dialing in a filter coffee and you knew exact microns, you could use that. But having said that, it's not the end of the world that they didn't use microns, because I do understand that it's expensive and it's hard to measure microns. This is a representation, a number that represents the distance between the blades. So even though it won't help you translate recipes to other grinders or from other grinders, once you've set it from your grinder, then it will never change. The blades won't slip, and so when you do have to replace them, they should be calibrated exactly the same. A number 25 will mean 25 no matter what, rather than the old school way of having to do it, which was to look on here and say, yeah, it's about 3/4 and a turn from 1 to 2, somewhere in that range. At least now you know exactly, okay, yesterday it was pouring perfectly at 8, that's where I'm going to sit it. And also one of the other features is if you spin it fast enough, the dial switches the screen to show you broad measures of where grind should be at. So say whether you're grinding for filter, for cold brew, for mocha pot, for espresso, for Turkish. It has the ranges there, and that helps you if you really want to switch quickly between filter and espresso or go down to a cold brew. And whilst it's probably mostly designed for espresso home users, it does mean that instead of having to buy a grinder for your filter and a grinder for your mocha pot and a grinder for your cold brew, you can pretty much use this all in one. And it's not too bad actually switching between the different sizes. I actually find it very easy. Like, you don't have to sit there for 5 hours trying to dial it to turn it around. It actually goes quite quickly from espresso to cold brew. Now, in the menu, there's a bunch of other things. You can set the password. Not sure why you want a password. Maybe if you have kids around or people mucking around with the grinder and you want to lock them out of changing it. Not sure why else you would have a password. Not sure many people are breaking into your grinder. You can change things like the LCD brightness. It also has things like the burr count. It has a count on there to see how many times you've used, say, dose 1, dose 2, dose 3, etc. Now, probably doesn't really help you because obviously dose 1 could be set to 13 seconds or it could be set to 1 second, and it's only just going to have an arbitrary number of 1, but at least it gives you some understanding of how old the burrs are, and it will have a little indicator that tells you when you're getting close to having to replace your burrs, but that's going to be thousands of coffees down the track. Now, it is a timed doser still, and it's not the fastest of all because I find to do a 22 gram, which is what I use here on the machine, it takes about 13 and a half, 14 seconds to do, which is quicker than a lot of the home appliance machines for sure, but it would have been nice to go a little bit faster. However, you're using 55mm burrs. The sacrifice is the speed, but the consistency is lovely. And you'll see in a second as I make a coffee and we'll dial it in, how nice the grinds are coming out of this machine. And I wish it would have been a grind by weight. I know that adds quite a lot of money to a grinder, and this is not the grinder to have it. But grind by weight means that you can just say, I want to have 18 grams or 22 grams or whatever your recipe is, and that's sort of the crux of your recipe, and then it will just dose out that amount. With this, you're going to have to stumble around for a bit to find that right grind size and set the time accordingly. So that means you are going to have to weigh it, and initially anyway, and you might have to weigh it every single time. But there is a feature that I'm going to go into which really, really does help, and I haven't seen it on any other grinder of this class. And this is called the SMART mode. And you go into the settings and you can activate the SMART mode. And then when you set up your recipes, because it can actually let you set your recipes, let's say you've dialed it in today and it's running perfectly at 28 seconds. It made the most amazing drop, and you had it on grind size 8. And it took 13.7 seconds to get there. Tomorrow, you go to dial it in, suddenly it gushes out in 21 seconds, and you go, okay, I don't know what to do. Well, there's a really easy way, and I love this. You just go into the SMART mode and you say, dose time adjustments on, and that's important, I'll tell you why in a second. Now, your target extraction was 28 seconds, so we make that 28 seconds. Your extract time that was running was only 21 seconds, so you're like, oh, okay, yeah, definitely need to change it. Click save. What it does is it actually tells you a recommended time, a recommended number that you need to adjust your grind size to. So if it was pouring fast, we know that we need to adjust it finer because that slows down the time and slows down the extraction and increases the time. But, and this is something that I often find with new baristas that are having to train them, this is where it gets tricky, because when you grind finer, it actually grinds slower. So in order to grind the same amount of coffee, that 18 to 22 grams or whatever you're aiming for, you need to up the time, because if you're making that grind finer, it's going to take longer to grind that same amount. And that's where I thought this machine was going to let it down, because I thought that's a concept that's really hard for new baristas and even experienced baristas to get their head around. They're easy to go, oh yeah, I need to make it slower, I'll adjust the grind finer. On a timed doser like this, it's not just a continuous one, you have to dose more. You have to increase the time. So I thought, well, that sort of solves half the problem, but not the full problem. Until I realized, actually, it is adjusting the time automatically. And I'll show you in a second, because we'll make a coffee and we'll test it out. It predicts what it needs to be in order to dose at that grind size, at that level, to get you that exact time. And that is why it's called the Smart Grinder. And I love that. I absolutely love that little feature in there. It's going to save so much headache for all those, especially newbies, but even for experienced baristas. You won't have to guess how long it takes to dose out that same amount that you're going for. So if you've already dialed it in and calibrated it and set it to 22 grams, then it will do the rest automatically, which is very, very smart. So it effectively becomes a grind by weight grinder, just without the super accurate scales that sit on the bottom of the plate. So let's go through and actually make a coffee and test this theory out. I'm going to be using my Il Caramello, just lovely and caramelly. And if you want to support me, you can jump on the website. There's a link below and you can purchase them there. You can just jump in here and select the grind size that you want. Go, yep, I want that. I'm going to make a new recipe. I'm going to call this Il Caramello. Now, this thing does annoy me. Got the old school style buttons that you used to have on your original Nokia phones. You know, the ones, what were they, like 6116 or something? You have to go through and press buttons and wait, make sure you wait. Don't rush. I'm going to put them down to about 8. For this machine, that's where I want it to be. Dose time, I know it's about 12.7, and then input weight is 22 grams, 22 and a half to be exact, and the output weight is 45, and then extract time is 30 seconds. I'm going to put it at 30 seconds. I'm happy if it's 28 or 32, but we're going to save it as 30 seconds just for the sake of it. Now I need to go adjust this down to 8. Yes, it's in real time, and they'll tell you it's real time, probably a second delayed. You turn it, and then it catches up with the numbers. So if you turn too fast, it goes too fast in one direction, you turn it the other way, it goes over the number in the other way. And because it is stepless, it might have even needed just a finer measurement, because 8 could be like 3 turns, like adjustments. Between 8 and 9 might be, you know, a couple of adjustments there, but at least I've got there now. Okay, now I need it to be double dose. All right, let's try this. Now, it comes with a dosing ring as well. All right, I'll take you through doing a new recipe here. So I'm gonna save a new recipe. You wanna title it. This is the annoying thing, is that it actually uses the old school Nokia way of typing in, so each button, if you take too long, you have to start again. Then you've got your burrs. So from my experience, the good espresso starts at about 8. I'll adjust it, and I can easily adjust it on the fly. Dose time 1, I don't really bother with, but dose time 2, I know it's about 12.7 seconds to get my dose to be, my input weight to be 22 and a half. I know it's going to take about 13 seconds. And my output weight, you can set it here. This is just data to capture. This isn't going to actually help anything. This doesn't help, but I want my output to be 46, and my time frame, I'm going to say 28 seconds. So there we go. That's the recipe, and then I click save. There's my ABC. Now, it's great having this dosing ring here, because it captures, especially when you have a big dose like 22 grams, and you can see here, it's a little bit clumpy. A little bit on the clumpy side, a little bit on the clumpy side, but not too bad. So we're going to run that. Okay, so let's see how long it takes. It's a pretty good extraction. It's gone a little bit over. Okay, so we're going pretty far here. 38 seconds, that one. So now when I go back to my grinder here, I click on the smart button. Okay, so my target extraction was 28, I set that. It actually ended up being 38. So let's see what it says. Okay, so it said change your grind size to 13, and see how it's gone yellow? That's saying that it's not on the exact dose. So now I can just go up 13, and then it says 12.2. So it's actually taken 0.5 seconds off, which now we can try it again and see how close that is. All right, so technically it should be the same dose. I haven't yet weighed it, but I will. Let's have a look at this. It's running a lot quicker. Well, look at that. Very close, 25. So a little bit on the quick side now, but let's make another adjustment. Okay, so I go to the smart. I say it got it in 25 seconds. It said, okay, now adjust it down to 8. To 11, and then dose 11, and it's changed it to 12.4 seconds. So we'll see what this actually weighs. So it's dosing at 24.4 grams. So we've made the adjustments, but it ran quickly. And this is because even though it's telling me to adjust the grind, that's fine. It's telling me to adjust the dose and the grind size and the timer, but there is still some coffee left in there. And also it might also be a factor that sometimes these grinders, they take a little bit of time to, as they're rotating, to get the blades to be in the accurate position. And so the reason is there's a bit of a distance between where the hopper is here and the blades first are and where it hits here to shoot into your coffee basket. And that's leaving behind a fraction of coffee called grind retention. And that's causing me on my next grinder to have to overcompensate, so I'm not getting accurate results. So what you need to do is just called purging the coffee. That just requires getting rid of some of the coffee. Now it's running 2 fine, it's getting to me in 23 seconds. So now it's saying adjust it back down to 9. Well, 9 is the right one, and it's adjusted up to 12.6. So that should be better now. Okay, so 12.6. See how close it is. All right, finally, we got it very, very close, 29 seconds, which is bang on where I need it to be. I don't want it to be any more accurate than that. I could, if I wanted to, see what it does. If I say 29 seconds, what does it say to adjust? Well, it didn't adjust anything, so it was happy with that within a variance of 1 or 2 seconds. So there you go, that is fantastic. And in terms of the dose, it was pretty close. Like it did dose up a little bit, like it was 22.5 and then it went up to 23. But we're not using this to be the most accurate grinder ever. This is a fantastic way for newbies to get introduced into the coffee world. Really easy way to understand coffee and start understanding the size difference between grinds, so that when you're grinding coffee, you know if it's coming out too fast, go finer. When it's going too slow, go coarser, and the different types of grinds needed for different types of brewing methods. So as you can see, there's huge improvements here, and you don't need to remember that number either, because as I showed you, the recipes there, you can just keep adding more and more recipes. I don't know if there's a limit to how many recipes you can add, but certainly there's a lot of recipes in there, more than you would need normally. If you've got a coffee and you just have dialed it in perfectly and you really enjoy that, and you run out and you want to try something else, you don't have to worry about remembering the numbers and all the doses, everything. You can just save that into your grinder and it'll be there when you come back a couple of months later to use that coffee again. So as you can see, it's a huge improvement on this Specialita. I'm not sure even why they call this Specialita Smart, because it's probably its own line. Like they've got so many different models in that range that this is probably just one of those other models. Maybe they knew that Specialita was their most popular model and that most people would be buying a Specialita, and this is very similar to the Specialita, although it's just a bit more beefed up, and maybe they wanted to push people down this direction. But that's why I would say it's called Specialita. Other than that, it's pretty much the same as a lot of their different range. It's just that it's the smarts that are attached to it that make the difference. Would I suggest this if you were going to buy a Specialita anyway? Probably. It's a couple of $100 more expensive than this Specialita, and so for that price you're getting something that's going to make your life so much easier, and the headaches are going to be gone when you need to understand about dialing in. Would I recommend this for people who are trying to go and hone in on their espressos and filter coffees? Maybe not. But if you're wanting something that's an all-rounder, that's super reliable, these grinders will last you till the ends of time. And if you're new to coffee, this is going to be a game changer for you, because you don't have to pay the price for the grind by weight technology, but you get something that's pretty much going to give you the same output and have the same effect on your coffee. So for that reason, I would definitely recommend going with the Specialita Smart over the Specialita. What do you think of this machine? Do you think this sort of technology should be in all grinders from now on? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm Rod, your coffee coach, and as always, enjoy your brew.